Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. Now this video is about a category of crops that deserve a lot more attention and love. But firstly, let's look at why Americans are right. Now, I have to give it to Americans that you guys pronounce herb correctly. You see, up until the 19th century here in Britain, herb was pronounced without the H. It was pronounced herb. Obviously there isn't the American accent there, but it was only when there was received pronunciation and other dialects that the H started to be pronounced. But there are some accents in the UK that don't actually pronounce the H in herb. But I just thought you should know that Americans are right. These here are herbs. So in case some of you didn't know, there are a huge number of benefits to growing herbs. But for me, the main one is that it allows you to grow flavours that money can't buy. And that is so important to me because that's why I grow food. I grow food because the sheer amount of flavours is incredible. So around me here, I have oregano, which is oregano hot and spicy. You can't buy that from a shop. Here, chives, on my microphone. You can buy the chive leaves from a shop, but you can't get the chive flowers. And chive flowers are just the most amazing thing to just put over any salad or almost any kind of savoury dish as something nice. And then fennel, you've got the fennel. This is Moroccan mint. Moroccan mint makes one of the best herbal teas you can possibly make. And I'll show you perhaps what I think is the most amazing herb when it comes to aroma that you have to grow. This here is one of the most fantastic perennial herbs you can grow. And this is a sage, but it's blackcurrant sage. It has the most intense aroma of blackcurrant, but it's a sage and it looks great. And what is so special are these little perfect flowers that you can eat. And also at the bottom, you just suck the flower and you get this little burst of sweetness. So yeah, this is just one example of just how incredible the diverse world of herbs are. Next to me here is a very special kind of mint. It's basil mint, and it has a smell of basil, but when you cook it, the mintiness goes away, but it retains a bit of a basil flavour. So you can use this as like a basil alternative on your pizza. How cool. In this video I will be mentioning other types of really great herbs to grow, and there are two different categories. There are annuals and perennials, and whilst there's so many that you can just enjoy and have the flavours that you can't buy, like green coriander seeds was such a revelation to me. But the lovely thing about herbs is that you can integrate them within a vegetable garden very easily. For perennial herbs, this here is a lemon verbena, which I essentially coppiced and is starting to come back really nice and healthily. You could put this at the edge of one of your garden beds, even if you're growing lots of annuals. So that's really nice to integrate, but things like your annual herbs, especially dill, parsley, basil, and coriander, even though parsley is a biannual, you can just put them in and around the place, because not only are they just happy to essentially grow anywhere, they will also then flower. And these flowers, the flowers of herbs in particular, are just amazing for pollinators and beneficial insects. So something like dill, or the parsnip out of focus behind me, that's a very nice kind of umbellifous flower like you get for fennel and also caraway. And this kind of flower is amazing for things like hoverflies and lacewings and parasitic wasps, which are all really important insects that we're trying to recruit into our gardens to help us create a nice natural pest predator balance and to make sure that everything is working in harmony with nature. So this plant here, which I need to maybe provide a little bit of loving support to, not mentally, more physically, is this is caraway, which is a biannual. So on the second year it flowers and it is very nice and hardy. I remember thinking, oh no, caraway, there's no way that you can grow some kind of like spice or herb like that in the UK. It is so easy and it self-seeds everywhere. So this is something that was self-seeded that I then moved into this location, and it's creating a huge number of seed heads to enjoy, which I can either use green fresh caraway or I can let it dry. And it's these beautiful little flowers that like so delicate, and at the moment I can actually see a little fly around, and it's just an example of how great herbs are. Now, for those of you that are looking at trying to save as much money as possible, but you only have a really small space, of course, the usual recommendation is grow lots of salad leaves. And the nice thing about that is that salad leaves seem to always come wrapped in plastic, so it's a nice way to avoid that. But when you grow your own herbs, because they are so productive and a little goes a long way from a small space, they are such a good option if you're trying to save money. Because whether it is your perennial herbs, especially popular things like thyme and rosemary, but also mint, having fresh mint tea is so amazing, and fresh fennel tea is so lovely. But also your things like your parsley and your coriander and your basil, if you just have a few of those plants, you can get all that you need for many, many months. And what it enables you to do is not only is it saving you money, but it's also giving you a reason to use those herbs more rather than thinking, oh no, I've got to buy them. It means that you can just utilize them whenever. You can make a lovely salsa verde whenever you want. Little life hack: roast some vegetables, make a nice simple salsa verde, match made in heaven. Very simple cooking, very simple eating, but delicious. Or make a compound butter, which Sam suggested and I also highly recommend. One of my favourite things about herbs is that they're also pretty easy to propagate. In front of me here, I have Moroccan mint, and I could just take the bottom 2 layers of leaves off, stick that in some water, and it's going to root. The exact same thing will happen with basil. Just put it in water, it will root. Most of the other herbs you can do either cuttings of, or you can do division. And division is where you just have, say, a load of mint, and you just slice the roots in half, the root ball in half, and you plant them aside, or the same with chives. And so if you start off with one plant and then say early spring, divide it from one big patch of chives, you could end up getting 8 different plants to dot around the place. And I think that that's such a lovely thing, as you can be self-sufficient, not just in terms of all of the harvest, but to make sure that you have more kind of fresh crops or fresh plants over the years. When older ones start to tire, you can start making the next generation of harvests. Herbs, as a category as a whole, are plants that don't need much nutrition at all, which the chicken agrees with. So herbs, you can grow them without compost. As long as the starting soil is fairly fertile, we haven't added any compost for any of these herbs for the past couple of years, because they're very happy, and that's lovely. So whether it's annual herbs or perennial herbs, you don't need to worry about providing the compost or the fertility that you do every year. For like some of your perennial vegetables might need, you know, a good amount of manure every year, especially things like rhubarb. But also all of your vegetables, you want to be mulching those with compost every year, the growing spaces, to provide that fertility. But that is not something that is needed for herbs. So if you have an area of your garden where the soil quality is a bit lower, then just grow some herbs in them, and it'll create this beautiful patch of food, colour, flavour that comes back year on year. There's a reason why I'm growing a lot more herbs this year, and thanks to places like Urban Herbs, who are my #1 go-to sourcer or provider of really interesting herbs, especially interesting culinary varieties. Hopefully this is a reason why you should also be growing a lot more herbs. And if you want to know what to grow in June, there's still loads of things that you can sow. Watch this video.